What up? What up? What up? It is another episode of Draught For Upside. It's whatever we're calling this Wednesday night show. I'm used to saying something else. It's my time slot, but it is no longer that time anymore. We are moving into football season. So tonight, that's what we're talking about. I'm joined, as always, on these with Brewery Mark. How you doing, Mark?
Doing great. It's exciting. We're 8 days away from some NFL football.
Yep, I've already done a couple, or I've done one, not a couple. I have one draft. I got a couple coming up over this weekend and into next week. Just getting started, basically getting started. Reading some of the stuff over in the Dr. Auto Discord, Danger critiquing other people's drafts, giving me just some shit about my wide receiver depth, but then turning around and telling somebody else that they need more running back depth. Like, Danger, I know you're not here, but like, make a decision. Do you want depth, or are you mad about people riding the bench? Come on, you can't have both, right?
No, you can't. Yeah, I haven't drafted. I actually haven't drafted any. I'm going to have 3 over the holiday weekend here coming up, and that's it, man. I've really cut down. I used to be in like a dozen leagues, and I'm down to like 3. I don't know. I guess the older I get, the seasonal stuff's a little less fun for me. I like the action you get out of DFS, that weekly sweat.
I'm the same way. I mean, it is delayed gratification. I didn't play a lot of best ball this year. I think I'm only in 4 leagues. I don't even think I was going to do that many, and just like I had to be like the last person in one. So ended up picking up that. A couple of leagues I just haven't run very good the last couple of years, and so I feel like I almost have to come back and validate myself, I guess, is one thing that I'm looking to do. And then in another league, I think I have like the most playoff appearances, most wins, most points scored over like this 13-year tenure of the league, but I've never won the championship there. I've been in the championship game, I've been in the playoffs, but just never followed all the way through. So maybe this is the year, but after one of my running backs gets shot 20 minutes after I draft him, it seems rather doomed from the get-go.
Yeah. I haven't done well at all the last few years, but it's one of them's Danger's League, and the other 2 are family leagues I've been in for 20 years. So we'll see.
Well, let's try and get everything together for this these drafts that you have. We've got a full show today. A couple things we're going to do. We're going to talk about a couple over-unders in terms of win totals. We were going team by team last week. That kind of like dragged on, and it felt like that we were talking about the same thing. A lot of these numbers, at their core are probably pretty close. So we've picked out 5 that we're going to go over today that we kind of like that maybe we haven't. We're going to talk about a couple guys that we're looking to draft, and maybe I'll have some ideas for you, maybe you'll have some ideas for me, and hopefully we just have a bunch of ideas. And then finally, we're going to take a look ahead at some possible DFS spots. I have browsed the pricing. I do kind of have an idea initially who I like, not based off projections, not based off of simulations, not based off a whole lot. So who knows where that's going to go in the next week and a half, but at least for today, we'll take a look at some of that. So let's get right into it, Mark. We talked about a couple last week. You and I were adamantly on the Lions side of the over. We were on the under of Green Bay. Before I introduce the first team, I'm not drinking anything special. I've got a truly blueberry here. What about you, sir?
Same old, just unraveled. My standard IPA. I love it, and it's easy to get it curbside.
All right. Well, hey, let's kick it off. There was one that we had a little misunderstanding backstage about what this number actually was, but we've settled on it. It's about 9 or 9.5, and it's for this Tennessee Titans team that is not the same. Obviously, A.J. Brown gone, Julio Jones gone. Not a lot of offensive weapons, it feels like. You've got an unproven rookie. You've got Derrick Henry, who, while he has been able to carry the load, is getting up there in age. He's 28. He's seen tremendous amounts of workload and beating and some injuries. Now, I don't want to predict injuries, but I don't think he alone, along with the other guys on this team, justifies a 9.5 win total.
No, I agree. I'm not a fan of their receiving core at all this year. And, so Tannehill is not going to have his tight ends to bail him out, and he's not going to have A.J. Brown to bail him out. And Derrick Henry, last year hurt, maybe took a step back. The workload maybe is getting to him now. I'm just not a fan. Everybody's up on this bounce back year of for Derrick Henry, but I'm just not there. I just don't see it. I think he'll be good. He'll be, maybe a top 10, top 12 running back, but I don't see him as like number 1, number 2 anymore. And to me, that cost Tennessee several wins.
Yeah, I mean, look, Derrick Henry can have a great year and Tennessee can still be bad. That's not always going to be the case in the running back position, but let's run through the schedule. Let's be, ultra generous on some of these and see how we get to 9. First place, we have the New York Giants. This is going to be at home. Let's go ahead and give them that game. It's a game at home. Giants, I don't think, are necessarily a great team or a good team. Let's put them in that same bracket. Let's go ahead and give Tennessee a 1-0 win. 1-0, not a 1-0 win. Then they go to Buffalo. Look, I get it. Last year they beat Buffalo and cost me, oh my God, like $35,000. It was an absolutely brutal beat. And I needed them to lose to Buffalo by like 6.5 or more, not just beat them. But that was in Tennessee. I don't know if they're going to be able to utilize the same game plan that they did, which was just absolutely run the ball down the Bills' throat. The other thing that I tend to believe is that passing games and these prolific passing games, like the one that Buffalo have, tend to do a little bit better early in the season. Still warm, still nice out. It's not as brutal having to tackle Derrick Henry 30 times, albeit he's a little bit more fresh. I think the Bills win this.
Yeah,
but let's do this. Let's, for the sake of it, let's give Tennessee a 2-0 start. Let's just give them a 2-0 start.
Okay.
So then they're going to play the Raiders. I'm not willing to give them both the game against the Bills and the Raiders. I say that they split these. We're at 1-2. Would you agree?
I agree.
Or 2-1. 2-1. Let's say they're 2-1.
2-1.
So then they play a 3-game stretch where they play the Colts twice and the Commanders once. Let's say they take 2 of those games and then they go and play the Texans. So now they win another game. They're at 5 wins. Okay. Are we good with that? I mean, I could totally see them being 2-4, but let's put them at 5 wins. This is the most optimistic of timelines.
Okay.
They then go against a really brutal stretch. The Chiefs, the Broncos, the Packers, and the Bengals, half at home, half on the road. I think they lose every one of those games.
Yeah, that's a very good possibility. Denver is the one question mark in my mind, but is it in Denver?
No, it's in Tennessee. The away games are the Chiefs and the Packers. They're playing the Bengals and the Broncos at home.
So that would be the only one that I think is kind of an even game.
Okay.
They're going to lose the rest, though, for sure.
So even in the most optimistic of timelines, let's put them at 6 at this point. They lose. They then travel to Philly. I feel like the Eagles are a better team than them. They lose there. So they're still at 6 wins. Then they play the Jags at home. Let's put them up to 7. They play the Chargers. That's a loss.
That's a loss.
Then they would have to beat 2 out of the next 3 teams to get to 9. The Texans, the Cowboys, and at the Jaguars. That gets them to 9. That doesn't even get them to 9.5. Like, right. I feel like I was very generous with this. there's one or two games that I think really go the other way. I think that they can get swept by the Colts twice in 3 weeks. Maybe they drop a game to the Bengals, or they beat the Bengals, or they beat the Broncos, like you said. But then maybe they split with the Jags. Maybe they don't get that game against the Bills. Maybe this is maybe they're drawing dead by the time they get to those last 3 games. Maybe they're only at 5.
There's a very good chance that they lose Buffalo and Las Vegas back to back.
Okay. I mean, look, I agree with you. I might even look into, I don't know if you can parlay these futures. That is just an absolute degen mode. But look, I don't feel like putting enough money on some of these futures that I'm locking my money up for a long time if I'm doing that. And it's just, dude, it's like playing season long. It's just not fun. Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Put $100 in to win like 100? I don't know. But maybe if I could put 100 to win, 1,000, it's just like season long.
I know. I sit there in my sports book. I have like the Red Wings winning the Stanley Cup. I put like $5 to win 1,000. But I gotta wait for the whole season.
It's a little bit better return on investment, and you're watching those games. So I think that's a resounding under for us on Tennessee. And I feel probably better about this than any of the other ones that we've said so far.
Yep.
All right. So then let's go to, we've been taking a lot of unders and we've been taking some long shot overs. Here's one that I think is interesting because you look through these over unders and you look at the top, it's Buffalo at 11.5, Tampa at 11.5. But there's another team right under them that I think is in a good spot. And, this is predominantly whether or not they stay healthy, but let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens at 10.5. They opened their season against the Jets, Dolphins, Patriots. I think that they could be going 3-0 going into a game against Buffalo that's at home.
Yeah, easily. I'm not impressed by any of those 3 teams. And Baltimore is always tough to play against. I think they're a little overrated this year, but they're still tough.
Okay, well, so let's say we're 3-0. Then we're playing the Bills. Let's drop one of those games. So we've dropped. We've basically played the AFC. What is that? The AFC East at that point, in complete succession, which is kind of crazy. We get a primetime game against the Bengals at home. Like Lamar wins these, right? Like Lamar wins these. Like it's absolutely insane. They can be down for the first 3 quarters. Burrow could be throwing the ball all over the place, but Lamar wins these. So I've got them, let's say 4-1. Okay, so we've got 4 wins so far.
Okay.
Then we're playing the Giants and the Browns. Giants on the road, Browns at home. I'm thinking 2 more.
2 more.
Then we play on the road the Bucks and the Saints, right? Look, I'm willing to be crazy about this. I'm going to say they hit a rough patch here. But both of these are primetime games. Both of these are primetime games.
Yeah, that feels like a split to me. That feels like a loss to Tampa and beat New Orleans.
Okay. So at this point, we've got what? 4, 5, 6, 7. We're almost there. We need 3 more wins. And we play the Panthers, we play the Jaguars. They play the Falcons and the Steelers.
There's another 2.
Well, that's it. Like I feel pretty good about this team getting somewhere between like 12 to 13. They have games. They play another game against the Bengals, 2 against the Steelers. The only real big team that they play in that back half is going to be possibly the Broncos. And Broncos were a team that we were really low on last week, more or less because of the division that they play in. But I think the Broncos are a good team, but they could beat the Broncos. This could very easily be like a 15-2 team or a 14-3 team. And this is all, predicated on Lamar's health, but I think that's realistic with this team.
I think so too. I mean, going through it just now, I didn't realize how weak their schedule actually is. And I think they have the opportunity to actually save Lamar a little bit and use their running backs in this case against some of these teams. They don't have to be moving him around and worry about him getting injured as much.
Yeah, so I like that one. Let's stay up at the top here. Here's another one. We got 10.5 wins. We've got the Dallas Cowboys. 10.5 wins, playing a really weak division. That's going to benefit them. But some of these teams tend to play Dallas pretty well. So let's talk about it.
And Dallas tends to play down.
I don't think Dallas is as good. This receiving core is not what it was.
No.
Dak almost feels like he's kind of plateaued. The big guys on both sides are not what they once were. I think that they start the season, they play the Bucks, and then they play the Bengals, Giants, and Commanders. What's a best case scenario coming out of those? Probably like a 3-1?
Yeah, that would be best case, man. I want to say 2 and I would put money down in 2-2.
Okay, but for the sake of this, let's say it's 3-1. Let's do that.
Okay.
Let's go to the Rams and then the Eagles. Both of those are going to be road games. Let's take those as losses.
Yep.
There's turmoil in Arlington at this point. They're down. Look, this team's 3-3. People are upset after that great start. They get to play the Lions, the Bears, the Packers, and the Vikings, all in succession. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tell me, how are they handling the NFC North?
Oh, Jesus. 1-3.
1-3. I think let's go with 2. I mean, let's get them 2 wins. Now we're up to 5.
Okay.
They play the Giants again. Let's go. Let's bring them up to 6. They play the Colts, Texans, and Jaguars. Let's bring them up to 8. Say they take 2 of those 3. Then they play the Eagles, Titans, and Commanders.
I see at least 2 losses there.
Yeah, let's give them 2. Let's give them 2 wins, and that just puts them at 10. Like I don't know that. Like I think we were generous. I can see them handling some of these stretches. I feel like this one is a little bit closer. I shade it towards the under. Wouldn't be surprised if maybe we're a little high on the Eagles. Maybe we're a little high on the Lions. A couple of these just maybe they steal them and they get to that 11 win mark. I think that they actually end up residing right at that 10. I think this number is better than what I initially thought given their schedule.
Yeah, but I think we were very generous on that, though. I think there's a couple in there that they're not going to meet. I like the under on this one.
Okay. Let's go take a look at the other side. This is a team that we've been giving everybody a win when they play. They are slotted at 6.5. It is Jacksonville at the Jaguars. Let's take a look at this schedule. Let's see what we got. We've got the Commanders, Colts, Chargers, Eagles, Texans to open up 5 games, 3 on the road. I'll give them 2 wins. I think maybe they beat the Commanders, maybe the Commanders and the Texans. Maybe.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Okay. They're on the road in the other ones. Maybe they beat the Colts. Maybe they end up 1-4. I think that's realistic. Then they play the Colts. So we've given them 2 wins. They play the Colts at Indianapolis. They're still at 2 wins. Yep. The Giants, Broncos, Raiders, Chiefs. Let's give them 1 win out of that 4. That gives them 3. Then they've got the Ravens, Lions, and Titans. Where are we giving them 1?
Give them 1. Yeah, this is one of those games that the Lions will cough it up.
All right. And then they have so at that point, I think we've only got like 4 wins, I think. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. So now they're going to need to kind of sweep this. Jets, Texans, and Titans. It's a possibility.
It is a possibility. It all depends. Is Tennessee in the running?
Sure.
But yeah, I could see him taking 2 for sure out of that stretch.
Yeah, it's a tough task for them to go ahead and win 3 in a row right there. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen it. I like this at the under. Obviously, the number, where you're going to be when you're betting an under on a 6.5, it's not going to have the gap that you might have like on a Tennessee 9.5 number. But I like the Jags on the under. Would not be surprised though. I mean, there are a couple spots here. If they make some vast improvements, that they could get up to a 7-8 win total, but I just don't see it. Last one for this segment, Mark. I've got the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals, 8.5. 8.5. Play in the tough division, but man, they've got some talent there, right? Like, James Conner, Kyler Murray, went and got some new wide receiving talent. 8.5. Does that seem weird to you?
I'd have to go through the schedule, but it actually feels pretty close.
Okay.
Especially, how many games is Hopkins suspended?
A bunch.
Yeah.
But let's run through it. Open up at home versus the Chiefs, then they go to Las Vegas, and then they're playing the Rams.
Yeah. What do we think of the Chiefs? No Tyreek, but they picked up Juju. Do they miss a beat at all?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I'm willing to give Arizona, if I'm being overly ambitious, I would give them 2 out of these 3, but I'm going to give them 1 out of 3.
Yeah. Okay.
They play the Panthers, Eagles, and Seahawks. I want to give them 2 there.
Panthers, Eagles, and Seahawks. Yes, 2.
Eagles at home, Panthers and Seahawks on the road. Let's go ahead and give them 2. That puts them up to 3. Then they're going to play the Saints, Vikings, and Seahawks. Again, I want to give them 1, maybe 2 here. Let's err on the other side. So that puts them at 4, right?
Yep.
Then they're going to play the Rams, 49ers, Chargers, Patriots, and then Broncos. This is going to be like a make or break section. I can see them winning at least 2 of those games, maybe 3.
Really? You think they can take 3 of those?
I think they absolutely could. They always play the divisional games close. The 49ers, it's a primetime game at home. I think so.
Okay. Let's go with 3.
Then they finish the season with the Bucks, Falcons, and 49ers. I can give them 1 or 2. I think that puts them. What did that end up putting them at? This is 1, 2, 3, and then in this stretch it was like 4, 5, 6. That's pretty close too. I don't know. I think that back end stretch is when it gets easier, and that's when this team struggles. I think I'm gonna think that this number is kind of where it is. I guess at second thought, no, I'm not betting this. This is an 11-win team from last year, though.
Yeah, which is actually, yeah, and they're going to have, and Kyler Murray was hurt for some of that last year.
It's always that second half when Call of Duty comes out, double XP weekends.
And you're going to get James Conner for the whole season this year, not just spot duty. Now they got rid of Edmonds. So, it's a tough one, man. It just feels like it's right at the right number. I kind of lean over. I don't think I can bet this one.
Yeah, one of the things that I like to point out, and I think we do, and it happens even in season to just about everybody, people overestimate the difference between a good and a great team or a bad and a good team. Like, it's a razor thin margin in a lot of cases. Now, bad to great, the top of the top, your Kansas Cities, your Buffaloes versus like your Jacksonville, your Texans. Yeah, like those teams, like those lower end bottom 5 or 6 teams will only probably get 1 or 2 wins against the top 10 teams throughout the entire season. But when you start looking at those mid-tier teams, team number 10 and team number 20 is not that far apart. But in our minds, a lot of times they really are. And you see people wanting to lay the point so often, but I just don't think that that's necessarily the case. If, you follow any type of like gambling systems, one big profitable system last year was just straight up taking every underdog on the money line throughout the entire year. Now, look, there were a couple that really made that go well. I think it was the Jets over the Bills, the Jags over the Bills, and the Lions over the Cardinals. Those 3 ones really, helped propel that system into profitability, but it was pretty close the rest of the way because dogs win more often than people realize. I'm not even talking about just covering the spread. Just winning outright is something that they do pretty quick often. So even in some of these games where you think that Arizona is going to be an underdog, I think that they're going to win more of them than we maybe are giving them credit for.
Yep.
All right. Well, Mark, we talked about having some drafts come up. So I think this is a good time to drop the very small amount of seasonal content that we might have, and start.
This is where I need Danger, man. He's all about seasonal.
Well, let's talk about some guys that I don't know if you've done any mock drafts or you looked at it, but let's talk about some guys that maybe are going above or below where you think that they should.
Okay.
Do you want me to throw out some names, or do you have anybody kind of prepared?
I have one specific one that we haven't talked about in any of the show prep or anything, and that's Juju Smith-Schuster in Kansas City. And Kansas City is looking to fill that Tyreek Hill number 1 spot. And I'm looking at Yahoo average draft position currently is at 68. And God, that just reeks value. If you can get him that far down in the 7th round, he's, in my mind, he's a number 1 receiver for Kansas City. I don't know how you feel about that, but I see a bounce back season. He's got a quarterback this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest problem was that there was some news that he had. I think he was dealing with like a knee injury. So I think that's what's kept him down there. I mean, obviously, if he has a injury-free season, I think that he outperforms his ADP, and you can definitely take a shot at him that far down.
Mm-hmm.
Just to give it some context, some guys that are being drafted kind of in that same range are guys like Hunter Renfrow, Adam Thielen, Darnell Mooney, Michael Thomas, Devontae Smith, and DeAndre Hopkins. So only a couple of those guys really have that kind of high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1 type of kind of value there. So,
right.
One guy that I kind of liked and I've attached myself to probably more than I should in past years, and I've been burned by injuries, but last year he still produced, is one Mike Williams, currently the wide receiver 18 in rankings. Where's this ADP? Hang on one second. Let me take a look at something. So, that was his ADP. His ADP is 48, so 4th round. He is being taken 8 wide receivers after Keenan Allen. And then when we look at last year, Mike Williams was the number 9 wide receiver. Keenan Allen was number 15. This is just a comparison between these 2 guys on the same team. Keenan Allen obviously gets more targets. Mike Williams gets more red zone looks. Mike Williams is a young guy. Keenan Allen is 30 years old. What do you think about the ascension of Mike Williams as a number 1 wide receiver in what looks to be one of the most explosive offenses in the league?
No, I think it's a great value where he's being drafted right now. I'm just looking at Yahoo right now, and he's going in round 5 on Yahoo, and that's crazy to me. Keenan Allen tends to get double covered because he's Keenan Allen, and I think a lot of fantasy players have that same attitude. It's Keenan Allen, so we should be drafting him ahead of Mike Williams. But I think if you just pointing out the stats that you pointed out, Mike Williams outperformed Keenan Allen last year, and I don't see that's going to stop this year. He's faster. He can jump higher. They use him in the red zone for that reason. So,
yeah, let's talk about some of the wide receivers that are going ahead of Mike Williams. They all have question marks. I mean, Mike Williams is staying healthy, but at the end of the day, every single one of these wide receivers that I'm about to say has that same question mark. Will they be healthy? It's the NFL. People get hurt.
Right.
You got Jalen Waddle, who had a breakout rookie season, was used more as a possession wide receiver, ran a lot of routes out of the slot. I think Jalen Waddle's going to have a great year this year. I know some people have pointed out that Tyreek Hill is going to be in the offense. That's less balls for him, but it's less coverage that he has to deal with. It's less eyes on him. Mm-hmm. Jalen Waddle can be a deep down threat. I like Jalen Waddle. I don't know if I like him more than Mike Williams, though. Again, Mike Williams, wide receiver 1 last year. Jalen Waddle, even with that increased workload, was like a wide receiver, just a fringe wide receiver 2 at 21 overall. And actually, hang on, I got to switch this to PPR. My bad. That kind of changes some things here. Well, Mike Williams was still wide receiver 1, but he was tied with Keenan Allen, basically 11 and 12. Jalen Waddle, where was he? Number 13. So, do you think that Jalen Waddle, his production in terms of overall yards, touchdowns, and other things that go into it, outweigh what will probably be a reduced workload, at least in the target section?
I don't see where he increases any of that this year. He might stay the same, but any increase he's going to get, that's going to go to Tyreek. So,
sure.
I think he's going to sit right in that same range. He's going to be a receiver 13, 14.
So I'm going to throw one here that I saw, somebody in the Discord talking a little smack about, but we've got the number 13 wide receiver coming off the board, 34 overall. That's going to be Michael Pittman. Finished last year's wide receiver 17. That's with Carson Wentz throwing him the ball in a massively run-heavy scheme. I think that they're going to throw the ball a little bit more. Matt Ryan is not an elite quarterback, but he's more than good. He's better than Carson Wentz, and he's better than a lot of guys. He's extremely accurate and had some good games at the beginning of the last season before Calvin Ridley, went off to do whatever he was doing, whether that was placing bets or getting right in the head. Michael Pittman is going to be that wide receiver 1 here in Indianapolis. Do you think he's being drafted too high? Do you think he's being drafted too low? What do you think is going to happen with Michael Pittman this year?
This is one of the biggest question marks in my mind. I am not a Matt Ryan fan at all. Yes, he's an improvement over Carson Wentz, but I really just don't see the passing game being that much better. I think it's still going to be run focused. So I don't see any increased production for Pittman this year.
I like Michael Pittman. I think he's being drafted right around where you can. I don't think that he's a bad pick at the end of the 3rd round. The guys that he's being picked around, he's being picked after like an AJ Brown or T Higgins, but before guys like DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, and Terry McLaurin. Now, those are the 3 names that I was going to mention when I was talking about Mike Williams and Jalen Waddle, but Terry McLaurin now is going to be playing with Carson Wentz. That offense looks like it has some problems. Deontay Johnson, one of the most talented wide receivers in the league, but has benefited from an extremely large target share. Is that going to continue with Trubisky? Is it going to continue with whoever's quarterback there? And DJ Moore is like the perennial guy that tends to disappoint, gets a lot of targets sometimes. People think, or I've heard people say, that it's an upgrade going to Baker Mayfield from Sam Darnold. And while that may be true, I'm just not sure how much of an upgrade it is. And Can we really expect more from DJ Moore, who ended up finishing as wide receiver 18, but is being taken as a fringe wide receiver 1?
No, yeah. Yeah, so in that context, I like Pittman better than any of those guys.
Yeah, look, one of the craziest ones for me is Terry McLaurin. I don't think his situation has gotten all that much better. And he was wide receiver 25 last year. He had some good games. I do think Carson Wentz is an upgrade over Heineke, but is it enough to propel him into kind of fringe wide receiver run 1 position? I just don't think so. I mean, I think let's talk about some guys that are going after these guys that could be there. DK Metcalf, extremely low on almost everybody's board in comparison to his productions in years past, and rightfully so. His quarterback situation so much different than it's ever been. Then we've got guys like Brandon Cooks and Cortland Sutton. Any of those three guys kind of interest you more than some of the guys that we mentioned?
No, really don't.
No, I mean, I think Cortland Sutton,
Maybe, yeah.
Metcalf, and Cooks. I would pick every single one of those guys over Terry McLaurin. Nothing against Terry McLaurin. I think he's great. I don't know. Like, they don't have anything else on that team. Are they going to force the ball to him? We've seen that from the Commanders. So I don't know. I just think McLaurin's going a little bit too high.
That's a Wentz thing too. He'll force it to him.
Yeah, I think McLaurin is going 1 to 2 rounds early, personally. But then you start getting into kind of the depths of the wide receiver position. Some of the guys that are going around that Juju Smith-Schuster range are guys like Allen Robinson, Jerry Jeudy, Darnell Mooney, Gabe Davis, Amari Cooper. Obviously, some of those guys have their own warts, whether it be the quarterback, whether it be no quarterback, or just a track record of no success.
Yeah. The one person I'll point out there is Allen Robinson. I'm actually high in him this year. I think he brings to LA and Stafford what they wanted from losing my mind right now. Odell. What they wanted in Odell, they're going to get out of Allen Robinson this year. So he's one receiver that I'm a little higher than most people on.
Let me give you two. Let me give you three overall. The last three wide receivers that I think we're going to talk about here, and then we'll go into the running backs. Christian Kirk right now being drafted as wide receiver number 40, 98 kind of overall. Robert Woods right behind him at 100, wide receiver 42. And you also have Brandon Ayuk a little bit above them at number 94, wide receiver 39. Ayuk, started last season off just nowhere to be found, but tends to have, or is said to have, a little bit of more of a rapport with Trey Lance. Does that bump him up over a guy like maybe like Rashard Bateman, Michael Thomas, or Elijah Moore for you?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk, if he has more of a rapport with Trey Lance, do you think that he goes he's a wide receiver 94 right now. He's going behind Tyler Lockett at 38, Rashad Bateman at 37, Michael Thomas at 34, and Elijah Moore at 33. Are you interested in Brandon Ayuk as a wide receiver 3, or is this guy somebody that, if he's there, but you're not reaching, and you wouldn't blame anybody if they picked him right around here?
Yeah, I guess the latter. I'm not reaching for him. I'm not a huge fan of his. I don't like the situation there in Chicago. I'd prefer to take Michael Thomas in this situation.
You mean San Francisco?
Oh, sorry, San Francisco. Yeah.
Similar situation.
Yeah.
Well, a guy that's going right above him, Tyler Lockett at 92. Look, this is crazy to me. Like, Tyler Lockett, I get he's in a bad situation, but so is DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is a wide receiver 19. Tyler Lockett is a wide receiver 38. What's going on here?
Yeah, I think that's weird. I like Lockett actually better. I don't know. Seattle in general is just bad. I'm really not interested in either receiver. But I would take Lockett first in my mind. So I think he's good value where he's being drafted.
So I'm gonna rattle off some names, either or. Tyler Lockett or Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I'm taking St. Brown.
Okay. Tyler Lockett or Jerry Jeudy?
Gotta go Jerry Jeudy.
Tyler Lockett or Amari Cooper? Now, keep in mind Amari Cooper's quarterback situation. He's got Jacoby Brissett for the first 11 games.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a case where I'm taking Tyler Lockett.
Okay. I mean, Amari Cooper's wide receiver 26. Tyler Lockett or Darnell Mooney?
Ooh. I'll go Mooney.
Tyler Lockett or Elijah Moore?
Elijah Moore.
That's crazy. So Mark, I'll tell you what. I'm taking Tyler Lockett over Amon-Ra St. Brown. Look, if you're going to tell me that Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to get 10 targets a game like he did for like that little stretch, then like I'm all in. But I just don't think that's the case. I don't think that they had anybody else to throw the ball to. And outside of this Lions, not like that they're like talent laden in the wide receiving corps or anything, but if everybody else goes down, yeah, maybe. But I just don't see him replicating what he did in that home stretch. I think that I prefer Tyler Lockett over Darnell Mooney before Elijah Moore, and it's not even close. The couple of guys within that range that I'd rather take the chance on them, given their situations. Allen Robinson, Jerry Jeudy, maybe, but the other guys that are being taken are Adam Thielen and Hunter Renfrow. And I think both of those guys, Thielen is older, but in a more dynamic offense, in my opinion. Renfrow, I think, is very good. If you hear opposing cornerbacks talk about this guy, they speak highly and say he's like one of the better wide receivers in the league. And so, I don't know what I'm talking about, but they do. So I'll believe them.
Yeah, I just, in my mind, Seattle is just going to run the ball. I just don't see Tyler Lockett getting a ton of targets this year.
Well, what's up, Adam? How are you?
Can you hear us?
Adam, can you hear us?
Apparently not.
Can you hear us? Can you? Nope.
Nope.
All right. There we go.
He's going to try to reconnect, so we'll get back to him.
So let's talk. We'll go back to it when Adam. We'll get his take on it. Let's talk about a running back situation that we touched on in the over/under yesterday or last week, and I have had my battles with danger on. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon versus Aaron Jones. When we look at where Aaron Jones is being drafted, running back 11, 19th overall. AJ Dillon is, I want to say wide receiver, running back 26, 66 overall, behind guys like Bryce Hall, Antonio Gibson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a hurt, banged up Cam Akers. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think that these two guys are altogether that different.
No, I agree. This was another one I was looking at. You brought him up on the pre-show. I think he's a great value where he's getting drafted. Let me look at where he's getting drafted on Yahoo right now.
Adam, can you hear us?
I can, yeah. I could hear you for a while earlier. Then I plugged my phone in to the charger. All of a sudden, it was muted. I couldn't get anything to work. But anyway, how you boys doing?
Man, we're doing good. We're just we're to a point. We have a couple over-unders that we talked about earlier. I don't know if you missed it, but we found the consensus best one to bet. And it's Tennessee slotted at 9 to 9.5. We're taking the under. Their schedule is not great. It's not terrible either, but it seems ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, who do they have in their wide receiver core? The rookie
Robert
Treylon
Woods.
Burks, and who is it? The
Robert Woods.
Last name guy, Kine something.
Well, they have Robert Woods.
They do have Robert Woods. That's a nice addition. But what rapport does he have with Tannehill? I don't know. Henry coming off an injury. The defense has to regress at some point. They're just not that talented. Yeah, I like it.
I think when we ran through it, we got them up to 8 being, we got them to 9 being extremely generous. So if you could get like a 9.5, I think DraftKings has them at 9 right now. You could probably line shop it, find 9.5. But so that was the first point. Now we're talking about.
They always overachieve. That's the only scary part. That team always seems to overachieve.
Yeah, they have to implode it sometime.
Well, there's going to be teams that like go under, and there are going to be teams that go over, and we feel like that's one of those teams. So AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones, we talked about it a little bit last week. I'm bringing it up again. I mean, look, where did they finish last year is the question that I ask people. Aaron Jones ended up as the running back number 11. A.J. Dillon was 23. I don't think A.J. Dillon was utilized the way that he will be until like the midway point of the season. I think that A.J. Dillon is a very strong running back too, and he's kind of being drafted as a third string running back. Like I think that he's just being underdrafted right now.
Yeah, and on Yahoo, I'm showing that he's going in the 6th round. I would have no problem doing a no RB draft and picking him up as one of my starting running backs in the 6th round.
Yeah, I think he's one of the best running back values out there, to be honest, because even if Aaron Jones doesn't get hurt, I mean, people love to talk about the upside. Well, and then if something happens to this guy, then you really got to smash. Like, you have to assume that they're both going to be healthy for at least the majority of the year. If that's the case, he still has great standalone value because I'm expecting him to have 14 to 16 touches a game in that offense. They just don't have proven weapons outside of those two. So I think you're going to see a big shift in Green Bay in how that offense operates. So I think he's a great value where he's at. I don't like Aaron Jones any less because he's stepping forward, but Chris, you're not a big fan of his as far as the value on Aaron Jones going. What's he going about? Running back 9 or 10 right now?
Yeah, somewhere in that range, like the running back 11, first or second round. I mean, look, this is what you can almost do with your running back situations. Maybe you take one early, right? You get one of the premier guys early, but then you wait until this like 4th, 5th, 6th round area. Let's say 5th round. You're getting guys like A.J. Dillon, Josh Jacobs is even falling that far. You could take a chance on like a guy like Akers, ETN, or even Elijah Mitchell. Not crazy about any of them, but I'm going to start accumulating them at this point. And then as you get deeper, you got like Dameon Pierce, Ramondre Stevenson, James Cook, Henderson, who could come in and quite possibly be the week 1 starter if Akers isn't able to go. And then my personal favorite until he was robbed at gunpoint and shot was Brian Robinson Jr. Was going like super, super low. So running back 48. And by all accounts, that there was a really good chance that he was going to take that job as the RB1 at like at least first and second down. So hopefully he has a speedy recovery. I heard he was shot in the buttocks, in the glute. So
wait. Is this a la Forrest Gump? Is that real?
Yeah, no, he did get shot. He got shot in the buttocks.
He got shot in the buttock. And by the way, don't mean to make light of the situation. Like, awful to see a guy who waited his turn behind the talent he did at Alabama, then all of a sudden make it to the league, work your way up to starter going into week 1, and then this crap happens. Like, just senseless. But that is still funny because it does sound like he's going to make a full recovery. So at least we can laugh about it, knowing that he's hopefully got a good career ahead of him.
Yeah, it was absolutely hilarious that I drafted him, and then literally 20 minutes later, the news broke. Like I was in the midst of like such a bad streak of everything in life, and that was, I mean, that fit. Like I think yesterday it started to turn. Everything started like I think I hit rock bottom on at least that run bad stretch, and now we're running back in neutral. So don't expect anybody else to be. Assaulted, shot, stabbed, or violently robbed at gunpoint. So, I don't have any other running backs, but I want to go back to something that we were just talking about. I didn't realize that you were on because I was looking at this, But I'm going to run through these questions, and I think that you probably heard me say some of these. Maybe not.
Yep.
Maybe so. But you know the question that I'm going to ask you, and it's Tyler Lockett. And I'm going to run off these names to you. Tyler Lockett, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Give me all of them over Lockett. I'll make it real easy.
Oh, my gosh.
All
right.
of them. All of them.
So if you're feeling that Lockett should be drafted that far, are you extremely low on DK Metcalf as well?
I'm not as low on Metcalf relative to where they were positioned last year at ADP, just because I think he's the guy that can win and get open and force targets towards him. And I think they're going to be trailing quite a bit. So I think Lockett, to hit his value, he's only done so on those deeper touchdowns. And I just don't think they're going to have the quarterback play to hit those deep routes or the running game to scare teams into crowding the box. So I just think it's going to be an ugly ass year for Seattle. That'd be an under I would take, even if it's 5.5 or 6.5.
Would you take what about Terry McLaurin? How low are you on him?
I'm not as low on McLaurin. Like he doesn't have a great quarterback, but he's never had a great quarterback. And I think at least Wentz has shown he can support someone who finishes around that wide receiver 1, low end or high end wide receiver 2 mark in Pittman last year. So yeah,
Pittman
I don't
was
think
17.
I was
Pittman
high
was
on
17 last year.
What's that?
Pittman was 17 last year, just for reference. Tyler Lockett was 16. Terry McLaurin was 25. Like, so do you think like it's going to change that much? I mean, Terry McLaurin fell behind guys like Darnell Mooney, Marquise Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brandon Cooks, and we've got him going like 10 spot. I think that's where he belongs, is the bottom end wide receiver 2. Right now he is going in, the wide receiver 16 position. It just seems like it's way too high to me.
Yeah, McLaurin's not a guy that I'm aggressively targeting. Like I don't want him over guys like Pittman, guys like who else is going in that neighborhood? Cortland Sutton. I would take Sutton over him for sure. So I'm not like aggressively targeting him, but would I take his overall season projection over Lockett? Yeah, absolutely.
I've got one that I just kind of came up with here. Mark, what's your opinion on T. Higgins? Do you need to know where his ADP is now and where he finished? I won't even tell you where he finished last year. Right now, his ADP is 33, wide receiver 12. That's a bottom end wide receiver 1. That means people are drafting 2 Cincinnati wide receivers in the top 12 of wide receivers. Jamar Chase is, like the third, between 3 to 5. Is that crazy?
I don't think it's insane. I think it's a little high. I do think of him as a top wide receiver 2, so it's not too big of a stretch to go bottom wide receiver 1.
Adam, what about you?
Yeah, I think that offense, the pace that they run at, the efficiency of their quarterback, the red zone opportunities they're going to have. I mean, we talked last week about Pittsburgh's probably taking a step back. A lot of that division is okay, but Baltimore had some work to do on defense after the second half of last year. I just think that offense can support 2 wide receiver 1s pretty easily. And I'm not saying I expect him to supplant Jamar Chase as the wide receiver number 1 on that team as far as the offense is concerned and Joe Burrow is concerned, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was neck and neck with Chase when it all comes down to it at the end of the year as far as fantasy points.
So let me put it to you this way, guys. T. Higgins was barely wide receiver 2 last year. Finished at 24th behind guys like Marquise Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Darnell Mooney, Brandon Cooks, the aforementioned Tyler Lockett, and Michael Pittman. Does that change? Like, I don't know. Like, I saw that. I guess I felt like T. Higgins was performed better than that. But he didn't. Does that change your opinion on it?
No.
Not for me. I think at the beginning of the year last year, since he was really trying to protect Burrow coming off the injury, they became a lot more pass heavy down the stretch, which opened up more opportunities for T. And I think going into year 2, Jamar Chase is going to demand a lot of attention. I don't want to say double teams because it's not like the NBA where you dump it in the post and then the guy gets double teamed, but he's going to demand a lot of attention from the safety over the top, and they're going to have to pick their poison. And I just think that opens up a lot of one-on-one for T. And since he knows they have 2 weapons that are really tough to beat outside. So, I expect him to look more like he did the last, say, half of last regular season and into the playoffs than what you saw in the first half of last year, which is what skews him more towards a low-end wide receiver 2 last season. But he's going to be – I mean, I'm comfortable taking him in that 10 to 14 range as far as wide receivers go.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go with one more to close the show, guys. We've got currently sitting in a bad offense. He switched teams, but he should by all means become the guy where he went. Currently sitting as wide receiver number 40. He finished last season as a wide receiver 26. Currently ADP, where is this? Right around 98. Do either of you have a guess who I'm talking about?
Nope.
You said he's being drafted at wide receiver 40 right now?
Wide receiver 40, finished last season as wide receiver 26. Went from a good team to a bad team. Got paid a lot of money. A lot of money.
Amari?
No, it's Christian Kirk, actually.
Oh.
No.
Opinions on that?
Where is he being drafted?
Number 98 overall, wide receiver number 40. Finished last season as a wide receiver 26. Marvin Jones last season was wide receiver 34. By all accounts, I feel like Christian Kirk should outperform Marvin Jones. I think both of these guys should have a better season. I think Jacksonville is still bad, but I think the offense is a little bit better. They do have, a quarterback coming into his second year. They've got a lot more weapons. It's not like great weapons, but they've got more weapons.
Yeah, and I have to think they have a better coach and coaching staff this year than they did last year that might actually be able to use the talent.
So Christian Kirk or Tyler Lockett, Adam?
You're getting into the neighborhood where I would probably take Lockett.
Okay.
But it just doesn't feel good. Where Kirk's being drafted, I'm targeting him to take him at least around above his ADP because I think he can be a good, at least in full PPR, because I think he can be a good, not a volume target guy, but they got to throw it to someone. They're saying Zay Jones is looking good. I'll believe that when I see it. Marvin Jones is getting old. He's got to be at least 32. They don't have a tight end to speak of. All the stuff about ETN being a great pass catcher, I don't see it. So I just think and they paid him good money. What was it, like 2 years, 25 mil, something like that?
I think it was like 4. Yeah, I mean like 40 million or something. I don't know.
Was it?
It's
not like 13 mil a year, but they're paying him wide receiver 1 money, and I think Trevor Lawrence needs a wide receiver 1. Why not him? I like the volume he's going to see relative to his ADP, that's for sure. But I would still take Lockett over him.
And look, at the end of the day, the guys that are being drafted around Christian Kirk, let's say you get to like the wide receiver 41, you're talking Drake London, Robert Woods, Allen Lazard, Chase Claypool, Chris Olave, Kadarius Toney, Traylon Burks, Russell Gage, Tyler Boyd. Like, here, I'll even go down 2 more. Garrett Wilson, DJ Chark. I mean, like, it's tough. I think the guy that as you get down there, that it starts to get kind of questionable is like Sky Moore, Jacoby Myers, George Pickens. There's some question marks there. The Jacoby Myers, I guess, is the one that's kind of interesting to me because, like the guy can't score touchdowns, but he was the wide receiver 29. So I know that Christian Kirk was going to be the last part. I promise this will be the last part. Jacoby Myers, wide receiver 29 last season, being drafted as wide receiver 54. I'll kick it to you, Mark, first. Valid or invalid? Are we checking the ID on this one? Are we letting it into the club or are we kicking it to the street?
Man, I don't know. I'll let him in. I'll let him into the club.
All right, he should be drafted ahead of that per Mark. Adam, Tyler Lockett, Jacoby Myers.
Why is it all coming back to Lockett, man?
I don't know, man.
See, now you've changed. I don't really. I think Jacoby's like, he's never a pick you feel excited to hit. You know what you're getting out of him by this point. He's been in the league long enough, and you saw what he did last year. Not scoring touchdowns, but he does get a lot of targets, and high percentage throws. He's going to catch a lot of passes. If it's a full PPR, he's a pretty safe dude where you're like, yeah, he's going to probably give me 10 to 12, 10 to 15 pretty consistently. But he's never going to have those spiked weeks. So it just depends on what your team needs, I guess. If you're already looking pretty damn good at the receiver position and he drops far enough, yeah, I suppose you could talk yourself into him. I don't know if it answers your question, but just trying to give some thinking behind it.
Yeah,
Never someone I'm excited for, but probably going to be about where he was last year.
So let me put it to you this way. So he averaged about 11 points per game PPR last year. Where he's being drafted, these guys were guys like Khalif Raymond, Emmanuel Sanders, ODB, Chenault, Pringle, Gabe Davis, Braxton Berrios, Quez Watkins, Jamison Crowder, Donovan People-Jones. These were guys that were getting like 7 to 8 points per game. So I think that he's not a guy that I'm reaching for. But I probably, like, if I see him and I'm willing to take him around early. If I see him up in the next 12 to 14, I think he's a guy that you can put on your roster and, feel really good about the depth on your bench, having him in a full PPR league. That's kind of what I got.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you got 3 solid receivers who are always going to start for you, if one of them has a bye, one of them gets hurt, you can pop them in there and not feel bad about yourself.
All right. Well, hey, we are coming to the end of the hour. It feels like you just got here, Adam. Was there anything else that you want to talk about? Were there any players that you are exceptionally high on, or any over-unders that like you wanted us to put out there? It'll be my segments are done, but we'll let you, put one last one in there if you want.
Let's see.
It can be a quarterback. It could be a tight end. It could be a kicker. It could be a defense.
A kicker. Kicker.
Take that kicker in the 10th round. Is that a viable strategy?
No, absolutely not. Never. I'm taking a lot of Kyle Pitts. I don't know if that's noteworthy, but I find myself taking him at his spot in the draft in the 3rd to 4th round instead of Mark Andrews or Kelsey in the late 1st, early 2nd. So
I definitely like him better than like a George Kittle who's going right around that same time. Super low on Kittle. Just not interested in him. But then, if you're not going with like a Kelsey, Andrews, or Pitts, like you get into like guys like Kittle or Waller who have all the talent in the world but are just incredibly inconsistent. And it seems like every year, like Waller has like a big like 80 target game to start the season. People are like, this is great. And like you have Darren Waller on your team, you're like, fuck it, we're winning the championship. And then like he doesn't get a target for 3 weeks. There was a tight end that I was interested in. Shit, I guess I forgot to talk about this guy. What about Dawson Knox?
I like Dawson. Drafted him in my only season long so far. Pretty bona fide red zone threat. He's got a great quarterback. Beasley's gone. He's kind of that intermediate route type guy. Yeah, I kind of like him. Mark, what do you think?
I'm on exactly what you said with Cole Beasley gone. I think he's going to increase in some targets there. And he's always been a red zone threat. So, yeah, he's great. Where's any data on where he's going right now?
He's going 11th in PPR. He finished at 11th. But what's weird to me is that he's going like after a guy like Zach Ertz. And I'm sure that he's going after dudes like Freiermuth, Gesicki, Kmet in some drafts. Not all, obviously. But like I think that there's just a huge drop off after that. Like if you don't have a tight end by the time Dawson Knox is off the board, like you're dealing with like some really questionable dudes like Cole Kmet, Njoku, Albert O, Tanya. Like, you're really hoping for a lot of things to go right for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that point, you're dart throwing late in the draft and then living the stream life week to week because none of those guys are worth spending draft capital on before like round 12, unless you get Knox in that range. Yeah, I got him 2 rounds after Freiermuth in my one season long draft. It blew my mind, but
Yeah,
I was fine with it.
That's nuts to me.
It's
So
funny,
cool.
like certain players. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but certain players just like keep slipping because public sentiment doesn't favor them, and the draft analysts aren't talking about them. But like, there's no reason why Dawson Knox's production would go down relative to last year. So why
He did
why,
score
why
a lot
would
of
he be worse than
touchdowns,
11?
but
He did, and that may swing the other direction. But also, like Mark was saying, he should see more targets as well. So he shouldn't need to have that crazy touchdown efficiency to stay in that neighborhood where he's at. I don't see more than 10 tight ends outscoring him. That's for sure.
yeah, how many touchdowns did he score last year? I know that I think cost me like $250,000. So I mean, he scored like 9. So that's a lot. Like, I think he loses a couple of those, but I definitely think he outperforms a lot of those guys in that range. So I feel comfortable going with him, especially where you're getting him. Mark, do you have anything that you want to close the show with? I forgot to hold a pen. I like holding a pen when I do these things. I think I'm better when I do it, but maybe next week.
No, I mean, I'm good. I don't really have anything else to talk about. But hey, Adam, why we have you? Just really quick before we roll this up. Any thoughts on Cam Smith going to live?
Yeah, I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. It's a big blow to the PGA Tour. That's for sure.
Yeah, to me, I mean, it's finally a big, other than DJ, it's really the first big name player to go.
Yeah, DJ was like the one that got the ball rolling, where it was the first like, oh shit moment. If you're a fan of the PGA Tour and things staying mostly domestic, as far as that goes, but yeah, it sucks, man. Even players like Neiman and Abe Answer and some of these younger guys, it sucks seeing them go too. The PGA Tour, I wouldn't say they're like on the ropes, but they're in trouble. None of it feels good. It's nice to see Rory and Tiger step up last week and at least seemingly take a step in the right direction for the tour and what they're going to do for their top end, upper tier players. But it still just sucks to watch the defectors go, and especially to a league that's just not based around the highest level of competition, which that's the reason why we have the biggest sports leagues outside of soccer, maybe in the States, is that's the highest level of competition. It's what players dream about when they're training as young athletes. It's what they dream about when they're hitting 10-foot putts on the practice green. This is to win the U.S. Open or the Masters. Not that they're going away for the live guys necessarily, but 72 holes with a cut, and the lowest score is the winner at the end of the week. That's just the way golf has been, and I think everything they're doing just diminishes the level of competition, both the talent and the format. Just none of it feels to me like anything I'm interested in tuning into. There's probably a market for it, but yeah, man, it's been hard to watch as a pretty big fan of the PGA Tour and just high level golf in general. It's been tough to watch some of these bigger names defect, but at this point, they're all but full. They shouldn't have a big need for it unless they're going to like push out their lower end players and bring in higher end players, which I mean wouldn't surprise me at all if they were to do that. But as it stands right now, they got these events. They're leading up to their whatever their championship finals are. They've got Boston this week, and then I think 3 more events before it's winding down for the season. So professional golf needed a shakeup. I just don't think this is the right anything really, format, leadership. It's not as forward thinking as they want to make it out to be. I just don't see how it sustains. I don't see how it sustains. It's just not. It's not going to keep interest, I don't think, from a viewer standpoint.
Not until they get a good TV deal. That's the only thing. but they have all that oil money behind it, and you know,
Yes.
I don't begrudge anybody going and getting a payday. That's fine.
Just be honest about why you're going. That's
Yeah,
been
I
my
mean,
thing.
you're only going for money.
Yeah, listening to like Lee Westwood and Graham McDowell and these guys just talk themselves in circles about this and that. It's like just say it. Like, I don't compete at the level I used to because I'm pushing, 50 years old. This was too hard to pass up, so I didn't pass it up, and I took the money.
Yeah,
It's fine. No one's like begrudging you for that. Just don't pretend like it's because you've been so unhappy with the way the PGA Tour is run and how they take advantage of this. It's like, just stop. Just stop.
no, the majority of the people are people who can't compete on the PGA Tour, so they're going and grabbing the cash.
Yeah, I mean, Cam's the first young, up and coming, rising star who has won a major in recent years that is gone, and it
Him
is a
and
big blow.
Joaquin.
Well, he hasn't won a major though. I mean, he won a big event this year, but
No, but he's a young, up and coming. I think he's
For sure.
gonna win. He could win a major if he's allowed.
he could have won a major. I think eventually the Live Tour guy, the Live League, whatever they're calling it, is it's probably gonna end up earning world ranking points, and eventually those players will be in majors, which is fine. But that's all yet to be seen. I like where the PGA Tour is going with the response, and hopefully the product that we're watching as the PGA Tour hopefully evolves doesn't get diminished too much.
Yep. All right, so we're way over time. Chris, any last thoughts?
See you next week.
All right. Hey, thanks for jumping on, Adam. This is Draught for Upside, and we'll see you in a week.